Hello, and welcome to Threads of Fate, a podcast all about astrology, divination, and the threads of fate that weave throughout all of our lives. I am your host, Kira Ryberg, and today we are back. We are, as the kids say, so back with another series, another episode in our Decan series with the one and only brilliant, wonderful, gorgeous, stunning Chloe Margarita. Welcome back to the show,
And
Chloe.
so happy to be back on this, what feels like kind of a holiday, honestly. Finally getting to Leo 2.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for Leo too. We've been talking about the Leo decans, I feel like, for a long time. Like, we can't wait to get to the Leo decans. And now we're finally here. And I know, obviously, this decan is one of special importance to you because you've
Yeah.
got your ascendant here. I
Yeah.
have my IC here. So
Oh,
yeah. So I'm really excited to just talk about it. It feels like one of those ones that feels really obvious on the surface. And I'm like excited to dig beneath those layers a little bit and figure out what else lies and lives in this space beyond just it's a Jupiter decan and it's all good stuff, right?
right.
Well, before we dive in, I want to ask anyone who's listening to please make sure that you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, follow along if you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure to like this video and leave a review if you've been enjoying this series. And let's dive right in. Chloe, you know what question I'm going to ask you. What is your elevator pitch for the
Yes.
second decan of Leo?
Yes. So if I'm going really surface level, very stereotypical, I would say Leo 2 is the fun one. It's the one that definitely comes with gifts,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to immediately facing challenges like the other two Leo decans. And with that, the way I really see it and really embody it is the abundance and growth and opportunity that comes with authenticity.
Mm.
This is the Leo Decan that says the more you are and the more you can accept all of yourself, the highs and the lows, and take that on as your mantle, the more successful and the more praise you'll get. Though, of course, one's relationship to praise and the crowd, the audience, is also a big part of it. But at its core, it's be yourself and you will be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like a really nice permission slip from the universe of like, hey,
Really is.
the key to the blessings and the success that you're seeking is just to be you, and part of why it's such a positive, maybe we could say, decan is because it's ruled by Jupiter in both decanic traditions. So it's a
Okay.
double Jupiter decan. I think the only one that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this really, really powerful benefic influence here, right? Where Jupiter is the planet of optimism, of abundance, of success, of material and spiritual growth, right? So there's a lot of ways that we find almost this pathway to material and spiritual success coming through the recognition of selfhood and what you have to offer to other people, and taking that and not kind of shying away from it or shirking away from that responsibility, but stepping up to the plate and saying, like, hey, I am worthy, I have something to offer, and I deserve to be rewarded for my unique perspective. And just to say that wherever the sun is placed in your chart is going to say a lot about how this goes. So if you're listening to this and you have Leo 2 placements and you're like, ugh, and cringing, like some of us, me, check where your sun is, because that's going to change how you relate to these themes. But these are the core themes of this decan on its own. And I'm curious, because this is a double Jupiter decan, that means it's also the Sagittarius decan of
Mm-hmm.
Leo. How do you parse that with this part of the zodiac?
Yeah. So as you were talking about Jupiter, it just made me think of, right, because it's this sun ruled sign, right, very much associated with royalty and opulence, we tend to focus on maybe the external trappings
Mm-hmm.
of success, which is, elevation, celebration. I think Austin Coppock describes this decan as like, oh, you've won American Idol. Like there's a sense of like you're at the top of the wheel, you are being honored, and you have achieved some sort of victory. But I mean, Jupiter is also so much about the internal journey of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and a sort of spiritual or intellectual connection to something higher than yourself. And so, yeah, one of the ways I really conceive this decan is like it's really, the outside is reflective of your own inner journeys and how much wisdom and growth you've attained in this world. So it really requires you not just in that strictly solar way to sit in your throne and be like, this is who I am. It causes you to go out and be like, okay, who am I in this situation? And who am
Mm-hmm.
I over there? And what sort of lessons can I take from that so I can have a value system, so I can move through the world with grace and ease, which requires doing, having like a code beyond, well, this is what I want, or I just want to be the best all the time. So it definitely requires that sort of Jupiterian, like long-term thinking of like, what kind of person do I want to become?
Yeah, and I think it does add kind of like a moral quality that we don't always think about with this Decan as well, is like you have to be in right relationship to yourself when you have placements here.
Yes.
And I think the development of a personal philosophy or core philosophy is really important for placements here, knowing the why behind what you're doing, who you are, why you believe what you believe, why you're going after what you're going after, why you deserve the success that you deserve, right? All of those things are so jovial, Jupiterian in
Mhm.
nature, right? Is like that kind of idea of meaning. And I think when we remember that this is a Sagittarius decan, we come to this relationship between meaning and selfhood, right? So it's
Yeah.
like finding the meaning of you and what you're here to do and what you're here to contribute, I think is a really big part of the path that placements here go down. But it can be one that I think all around, like we've talked about it before, there's just some decans that are nicer than others. And this one is, it's nicer, it is double
Yes.
Jupiter, right? And it's the sun sign. So there's a lot of ways in which you will find support the further that you go down and the more you
Yeah.
allow yourself to express those personal philosophies. It's almost like a guiding light. And as you allow that
Mhm.
guiding light to guide you, you find like, oh wow, this really works, or like, oh, I'm getting recognition for this, or this feels good, this feels authentic, I'm making money, I'm whatever it might be, right? Which a lot of those material trappings of success are also tend to be a part of the Leo 2 experience, right? There is usually some amount of material abundance that we find here, placement dependent and where the sun is dependent, but it's kind of like it's baked in a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, thinking of myself and my own Leo 2 experience, my business is only successful when I do what I want to do. And it's like whenever I ask my audience, like, what do you want from me? They're just like, just write about what you want to write about. And I'm like, fine. Like there is that thing of like there, the wisdom comes from your particular lens and your particular perspective. And thinking of, the Sagittarius thing, one of the ways I really understand this sign is it's about like, your truth in action, right?
Mm,
Sagittarius is about like, okay, I have these values, but they're not just sitting in my head. I want to act them out and have them shape and impact my life and hopefully like take me on a journey. And so like there's something very much about like how do you practice what you preach, right? Or you have like a certain perspective. Okay, are you actually living that, right? And I
mm-hmm.
feel like Leo 2 people struggle when there is that mismatch between like the inside and the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like one of those decans where you don't really get away with doing it anyone else's way. Like if you have your midheaven here, it's going to be hard for you to work for someone else, for example, right?
100%.
It's like this kind of thing where your perspective is going to feel so almost necessary for you to listen to and to follow that anything else can feel like a betrayal of self, right? Even if it's just like, oh, I'm showing up every day at this job to accomplish the goals that someone else has set out and outlined for me, even though that's kind of how the world works, right? There might be like this internal thing in you that's like, but I should be pouring my time and my energy into the things that are my vision, right? And there tends to be, I think, I don't know if desire is the right word, but a something that pushes you towards having a cultural impact, because Jupiter goes wide, Jupiter goes big, and we have this double Jupiter sun thing going on. It's like, okay, I want to be who I am in public in a way that other people can see and recognize. And also I want it to touch a lot of lives. I want to have it mean something big, right? And we see, I don't think it, I mean, you can find celebrities obviously in any decan, obviously, but there is a very Leo 2 kind of celebrity, where like
Yeah.
the cultural impact feels like they don't just kind of occupy the limelight a little bit. It's like they are in it. They are household names. People really know them, right? Kylie Jenner, Charlie XCX, literally the name on everyone's lips for an entire summer, right? Like we named summer after her, right? Brat Summer. It's like
Love.
that kind of ability to have this really, really widespread impact by straight up just being you, right? Like by being authentic. And even though that can sometimes feel lonely or isolating or create its own host of challenges, it's still very much, part of it.
Yeah. And I think, particularly just looking at the Leo 2 list you've compiled, there's a sense of not just, oh, they're in the limelight and they're occupying it, like they're really adored, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, there's a strong stand culture. A lot of people, go to bat for them. I'm even
Yeah.
thinking of you have Obama here and like, right, you mentioned Leo 2 being like a cultural impact. And to me, that's like different than like political impact. Because if we look at like Obama's politics and what he did, it's not great, but like he has this really big cultural impact as being like hope and change, right? The first Black president, the place he occupies like in our cultural consciousness is really big.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a huge thing. Like these aren't necessarily people who are like want to be behind the scenes, like turning the wheels. They're people who it's like they're out front, and how you think about things in the world and art like is very much impacted by these types of people.
Yeah, and I think they seek that recognition out, even if they do things
Yeah.
behind closed doors for a while. Like I think eventually they're like, okay, it was me. It was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I can't help but think about the astrologer Joan Quigley, who was Reagan's astrologer, right? And the entire time that he
Yes.
was in office and she was kind of consulting for Nancy Reagan, she was behind closed doors. Not many people knew, if any, that she was in this position, or so she says in her book. But at the end of it, like she's gets kind of like outed and she's like, yes, it was me, and she goes and writes a whole book about it, and it does like this tell-all expose of her time as the White House astrologer, right? And it's kind of like that need for recognition and affirmation, I think, is huge here, because it is Sun Jupiter, right? Like it feels good to be seen. And
Yes.
the more that you try to stifle yourself or put yourself behind closed doors, I think the more you are going to feel dissatisfied.
Yes.
um Sorry, my alarm just went off. I don't know if anybody is doing omen walk, which is a hot grub has this practice every year of like in the first days of the year and then the last days of the prior year, you find an omen. So I guess my omen is talking about Leo 2 stuff for the next month. So we love that. But yeah, I think that there is this kind of thing of like you need the recognition, you need the affirmation. And if you
Mhm.
try to deny that part of yourself, I think that's where you can also run into challenges. Like,
Yes.
am I gonna bring up the bound? I'm gonna bring up the
You
bound.
have to.
We
You
have
have
to bring
to.
up the
I
bound. I
was
think
going to.
I think this is the most interesting bound deck and overlay in the entire zodiac. I'm just gonna
I
say
would
it.
agree. I would agree.
It's the majority of this decan, save for I think 2 degrees, 3 degrees maybe, is Saturn's. And so there is a massive Saturnian influence when you are engaging with these Sun Jupiter themes, which can manifest in a couple different ways, right? Like it can be, oh, I'm lonely, it's lonely at the top is like a classic one, but there can also be this struggle with, oh my God, I need the recognition. And also like it's so cringe to ask for it because you're using Saturn's tools to engage with it. So it's almost like there's a fear or there's self-doubt. And we don't tend to ascribe that to this decan. But when you do that bound overlay, you realize that whatever 7 degrees of this decan are Saturn's in a way, it kind of can create this tension point for a lot of people that have placements in that bound specifically, where it's like, ooh, I thought it was going to be all glory and victory and great things, but actually it's like hard to be myself, and it's hard to want that, or to give myself the permission to want the recognition and the affirmation that I see.
Yeah, and I think the at least the way that has worked for me for working through that is the attention and recognition thing. Yes, like do I have a thing with needing praise and affirmation? Definitely. But when you're only focusing on I want to get the good reaction or I only want to show the good face, I feel like that's where the Saturn comes in and feels really oppressive. Like to me it's like embracing the Saturn part of like sometimes I fail, I have limitations, like there are parts of me that are incomplete or feel unsure. And the more I can lean into that and let that also be part of like how I'm seen, the more authority that I feel, because then it's like there's nothing anyone could say that I haven't
Yeah.
already seen, right? It's like the more you kind of show that vulnerability, like it's then not you people can't like use it against you, which feels very like Saturn. I'm thinking about people using something against me, but it's like they're like Saturn is very much to me that energy of like no stone unturned. Like
Mm.
there's no part of me that is foreign to me. There's no part of me that is not I'm not accepting. And I going back to Charlie XCX, like the thing that struck me so much about Brat is how much she's embracing all of her insecurities and hurt
Yes.
feelings. And that just added and made her like bombastic confidence stronger. It didn't weaken
Hmm.
it. It made us believe it more because that's also balanced with like these truths that it's like, oh, she's just like me, but
Yeah.
also not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it makes you real. Right. And I think
Yes.
that realness, it comes through showing your trials and your tribulations and your struggles and your doubts and your fears. Right. Like there's a song on that album that talks about like, I don't know, should I have kids? Should I like risk my career? Should I not? Like, I don't know what to do. Right. And I feel like that is something that so many people struggle with. And especially in our generation right now, we were just talking about this yesterday, right? Like relate to these themes of like, should I have children? Should I not have children? Like, is this the
Yep.
path for me? Is this
Yep.
not the path for me? And instead of acting like she has it all figured out, right? Which I think can be kind of like a trapping of like the Jupiter Sun thing is like, don't worry. I'm inspirational. I'm aspirational. I've got it all. I figured it all out. Is like actually the more that you kind of reveal the realness and the doubts and the fears that live in you, the more relatable you become and the more authentic you actually are being. And then in that lies the truth that you become more successful as a result. So instead of
Yeah.
hiding away from your insecurities, when you make space for them on stage with you, I think it actually brings you more success. Like I'm thinking about Kylie Jenner, right? And how for so long she
Mhm.
denied having like filler or any work done, right? And everyone was like, we know you're lying. Like we know that you did
Exactly.
this.
Exactly.
And like they were kind of it was diminishing part of her credibility, right? Because you're like, you're not
Hmm.
being real. You're on a reality TV show and you're not being real and you're not showing us who you truly are. And then the second that she admitted it, everyone praised her. It was like, oh my God, Kylie Jenner's talking about where she got her work done. And it's like, okay. I mean, I don't know if that's what we need to be praising in society, but I also do think that there's something about saying, like, yeah, these are exactly the treatments I had. This is exactly like the implant that I got in my boobs. This is the surgeon I went to. It's like it did make her more likable, I think, in the way that
Yeah.
she is liked by many people.
Yeah. I'll just say that this feels like a very common Leo 2 experience where, I mean, not so much the boob job part, but so many times where it's like I've said something to like y'all, like my friends, and just been like, I feel so dumb bringing this up. I don't like these feelings. I don't, but I have to say them. And just, I've just had the reaction of people being like, Chloe, you're so brave. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so glad you bring that up and you like inspire me to do that myself. And I'm like,
I've
okay,
definitely said this to
great.
you before. No, it's one of my favorite things about you is that you bring any type of uncomfortable feeling to the table and you're like, hey, by the way, this made me feel away. Can we just talk about it? And instead of like shying away from the ugliness or the pain or the
Yeah.
hurt, right? All of these Saturnian themes, it's like, no, you show up and then I do find it. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I felt that brave to be able to show up at a conversation and be like, hey, this thing that you said just made me feel weird. And like,
Yeah.
we don't have to be weird about it, but that made me feel weird. And then we can just talk about it and move past it. And I think you are so good at doing the Sun Saturn thing, and I do think that that's an inherent part of most of this Decan, right? Is that kind of
Yeah.
tendency to have to make peace with the sides of yourself that you would rather hide away. And there is
Yeah.
this, yeah, relationship to that, I think that is profound here.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, just thinking about how diurnal this decan is, if you add in the bound, it's like every one of the diurnal planets like has an influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right, so much of it is about like, right, achieving or like doing things externally, but like there has to be that Jupiter Saturn balance where you have to take on the burden and the responsibility of being yourself. And like I really have this thing of like if there's something I can't say, then it just sits in the back of my head and Saturn just like makes this weight, this like darkness that like can consume everything, not to be dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't, versus if I just say it, like then the Jupiter can kind of come in and like, I don't know, add ease to it or
Yeah.
put it as part of a larger system. But like it's such a thing of like, because it's so diurnal, like there's such a focus on like you're here to achieve something externally in the world, but that really requires you to bring it all out and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not limit your wholeness, because when you say, oh, I can't be that, or oh, I can't say that, then you're cutting off what could be, another pathway to deeper growth and discovery.
I love that. Like, yeah, yeah, that whole thing was just a bar. It was really good. I was gonna pick out one part of it to say that it was my favorite, but the whole thing was just so good. But yeah, I think that there is this need to accept all of you for who you truly are, right? There is this quest for authenticity, I think, that we find whenever the sun and Jupiter show up together, right? And that is a really big part of this decan. So that quest for who you truly are means making peace with the sides of yourself that you aren't as happy with or that you wish could change. And it is an internal journey, even if it is externally focused, because there is such a diurnal kind of energy here, right? And I think a lot of what we see out in the world when we see Leo 2 stuff is the person being celebrated, right? It is the victor, and victory
Yeah.
is a Jupiter word. And when we look at the tarot card that's associated with this decan, it's the Six of Wands, which is literally a guy on horseback riding through a crowd with a crown of laurels on his head being celebrated, right? And
Yeah.
I think of that so much. I think it's the perfect image for this decan in so many ways, where there is one, you are being celebrated. There is a victory, there's an accomplishment, right? The crown of laurel signifies some type of win or success. And also, you are separate from the crowd. You are
Yes.
elevated. You are on the horse. You are above everyone else. And that distancing, I think, is very Saturnian, right? Like it creates almost this othering in the opposite direction, where it is like it's lonely at the top sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, but that there
Mm-hmm.
is also this feeling of everyone's cheering you on and you get your moment in the sun. I think that might be T. Susan Chang's name for this decan, in her book 36 Secrets, Moment in the Sun or something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and it is that, you do kind of tend to get your 15 minutes of fame. And sometimes those 15 minutes are 15 years, sometimes those 15 minutes are truly 15 minutes, but you do tend to have almost like these flashes of encounters with celebrity, I guess. Like even if it's like you went viral when you were a kid for something that was really stupid, and it's like all these people saw you, right? And no one would remember unless you brought it up, but then they'd be like, oh yeah, I remember I saw that video when I was 9 or whatever. There's kind of like that thing where you have these moments that just thrust you into the
Yes,
limelight, that put you on top of that Six of Wands horse, so to speak.
definitely. Definitely. And yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, something else I wanted to bring up with the tarot card, because what's so fascinating to me about that card is, right, there's so much of like on the surface about that victory and celebration, and that's certainly what's happening. But what I find interesting is you can't see the figure's face
Mm-hmm.
away, so you don't actually know how he feels about being at the top. And most of the card is taken up by this big ass horse and like this long green like cloak
So
that he's
Jupiter.
wearing. Yeah, and I think of like horses, tend to symbolize kind of like enlightenment, and there's something of like, you know, being brought here like in, maybe like this is where you need to be spiritually, but there can be this like almost like imposter syndrome with Leo too, of like why me, or like how did I
Mm.
get here, or like okay, I'm here, but am I actually happy, right? Or am I just thinking about like the next turning of the wheel where maybe I won't be successful. And, and I think that's like kind of why, we're talking about this as a gift, but, you can't be a victor all the time. Right. And, that's very much also something talked about with this decan, like Jupiter and the Wheel of Fortune. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do when you're falling from grace? Not even in a dramatic way. What do you do when you're just in that more Saturn mode and you're feeling really inward and unsure, or you've
Yeah.
lost, right? That's an experience that's going to happen, and that has to be included too.
Yes. One of my favorite examples for this decan when I was really getting into them was Venus
Mm-hmm.
Williams, who has her a lot of spirit here, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. And for so long, she was one of the best tennis players in the entire world, right? Was winning Olympics and every tournament that you could possibly imagine. She was a victor, right? She held that number one or number two. It's like her and her sister, which is hysterical when you realize that her son is in Gemini 3 and one twin must kill the other for the other to thrive and survive. I just can't get over how good that example is. Anyway, when you look at where she is now, right, we would still regard her as one of the all-time best tennis players, but I don't even think she makes the top 100 list anymore, right? Like she had her moment in the sun. She had her time, and it was a lot longer than 15 minutes. She is a household name. We know who Venus Williams is, but she doesn't stay at that place forever. And I know that's something that Austin Coppock talks a lot about with this Decan as well, is it's kind of like you are granted the 15 minutes of fame, the celebrity, that encounter with it, but it doesn't always mean it's going to last. And you have to kind of make peace with the fact that no one stays at the top of their game
Yeah.
forever. It's just not possible, right? So even if you get to the top of your field or your goal or, visibility, whatever it might be, you also have to make peace with the fact that the wheel of fortune keeps turning, and that because you've had your time at the top, you will also then have your time at the bottom again. Your bottom might still be higher than a lot of other people's, but you're still going to have to reckon with the fact of, oh, I'm not where I once was. And when you have your self-worth entangled in status and
Yeah.
visibility and affirmation, that can be really, really humbling, I think, for the Leo 2 person to be like, shit, like, how do I get back there? Because sometimes you just can't. Like Venus Williams is probably never going to be as good of a tennis player now or in the future as she was when she was in her prime, right? And I think that that can be a hard pill to swallow. That's also the nature of doing a physical sport as a human being who has an aging body, right? And is
Yeah.
giving birth and like all of these things. So it's just part of it.
It's the clinging, especially to one, place of victory that I think can cause
Yes.
the suffering or the stagnation, because it's like the Jupiter part wants the growth. And just a little behind the scenes insight, Kira and I just started the Artist Way together. And and one of the things the first chapter talks about is like, to be better, to be good at something that you haven't done before, you have to be okay being bad at it and it being vulnerable. Like, to
Mm-hmm.
only want victory means that you don't grow. And like a much more mundane example, right, it comes from someone who has their ascendant here, Robert Downey Jr., who cannot leave the Marvel universe. Like, he's
So
back as a different
funny.
character for some reason, and these over bloated, like, dumb movies that no one takes seriously at this point. Like, sure, yeah, he gets his, like, I just read a thing where he gets like his own special like suite in like, or compound out on set,
Oh
where he
my
has
God, I
like his
read this too
private chef. Of
about this.
course,
Yeah.
because it's like, dude, like, you just got an Oscar. Like, you went through all of this hardship and you're just doing Marvel slop again. Like, get your
Yeah.
paycheck, dude. But like,
I think you've
there's,
got enough money at this point to go do something a little bit more challenging.
yeah, and that's the thing, is like, he knows the Marvel universe. He knows that, the fans will go crazy like to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there since the beginning. And like, I mean, Marvel did a huge thing of like kind of like jump starting his career, because another very Leo 2 thing about him was, he's like a nepo baby. He comes from like a actor family, and then he had like a very, long hard battle with drugs and addiction
Mm-hmm.
that he got through. And I think that almost, yeah, like made his story like all the more like poignant and strong. And now he's just kind of like been like up here for years, it seems.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see the quality and like, yeah, how people talk about him or view him.
Yeah. And I think when we come back to the fact that this is a Sagittarius decan as well, as like,
Mhm.
even though the sun demands consistency, there has to be a renewal or an adaptability here to really be able to maintain that kind of jovial beneficence, right? Like you might be, we can use Venus Williams, right? Like have your
Mhm.
place in the sun. You're the best tennis player in the world. And then go on and go do something else and be the best at that and go climb that ladder and go get to the top of
Exactly.
that field, right? Like someone who I think embodies this really well actually is Matthew McConaughey, who has his lot of fortune here, right? Like great actor. I love Matthew McConaughey. But then he's like, you know what if I wrote an autobiography? And then, oh, what if I published like a book of poems? And now actually I feel like teaching a course at a university. And oh, and maybe, I'm going to start a tequila brand. And like, he keeps doing this thing of like almost reinvention of self that I feel
Mhm.
like is so inherent to mutable signs. Like there has to be an adaptability there, right? And that allows space for growth that is still authentic. Right. It's like maybe you now is not who you were 20 years ago. And instead of clinging to that role and that idea of who you're supposed to be, like, oh, but I was the best at that, and I can't let it go. It's like, well, that's where you get yourself into the trapping of feeling discontent with yourself because you're not holding space for a change in ideals, for your personal philosophy to adapt to where you are now at this stage of life. And I think when we do that, you end up being able to occupy the spotlight at different moments in your life for different reasons that correspond to your personal growth and where you are at that moment. And that's really true success, right? Is like, oh, you get to be successful at many different things. Congratulations. But you also have to let yourself do and be many different things. Otherwise, you're just going to stagnate. And that's a Saturnian principle and might be more felt in the bound of Saturn for sure.
Totally. Yeah. And and I think with that, there also has to be that element of time or giving yourself the space to grow, not immediately rushing into the next thing, but sort of letting in that very jovial way, letting like your inner knowing or sense of faith sort of lead you. Like I think it can be something very spiritual about this decan of like trusting, yeah, that what the next thing is, even if it means to rest, even if it means like being in a period of not knowing, like there's something still really ripe in experiencing that, right? It's not just, oh, can I experience all of me, but can I experience all that life has to offer? Like I think of Fiona Apple, who has her Venus here, and one of my favorite lyrics of hers is, I just want to feel everything. And I kind of use that as like my philosophy of like, do I want to be sad all the time? No. But like, do I miss out on something by like avoiding that sadness or that unsureness? Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you have to let yourself feel everything. You also have to let yourself be everything that you want to be, because
Mhm,
so much of
mhm.
this is not even about that lunar principle of feeling, even though that's so connected to the solar principle of becoming, right? It's like we become what we feel we need to be. But there is this kind of, yeah, I lost my train of thought, but you pick it up. I threw it over. You pick it up and finish it for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's like, oh
The
my
moon
God.
is very void in Leo too right now. So like the wandering
We're just vibing
speech, we're
it.
just
We're
vibing
just
out
we're
right
just
now.
vibing it. Yeah, we're just embodying Leo too, which is just like, you have to take us at our void moon bimbo phase. If okay,
Always.
this is a good, okay, now I've picked up a thread, right? Okay, we have Emily Ratajkowski has her Jupiter here and talk
Yeah.
about the, model who also writes, and people are like,
Hmm.
wow, this person who's hot has a brain. What about
Yeah.
what's that about, and also just, yeah, experiencing like the I don't know, the tension, or like maybe having to like give people time to adjust to like how big you see yourself as well, and how like there can definitely be like friction, not even from like the quality of your work, but from other people, just, yeah, and being like not taking you seriously at first.
Yeah. Well, I think there can be this thing with Leo too, where it comes off as being very self-important, where it's like, no, but because there is an inherent sense of worthiness and value in
Yeah,
and
yeah,
belief in self that I think comes in this deck. And if you're like, what, excuse you for thinking that you are so worthy and valuable and all these
yeah.
things. It's like, well, if only
Mhm.
we all believe that about ourselves, like think about how
Right.
far we could get, and think about the
Yeah.
people that really do embody that and just how far they do get, right?
Yes.
And there's almost that quality of audacity there, but we're going to talk about that so much more in the next
Oh my God.
episode on Leo 3. But I think that this ability to take up space can have other people look at you and be like, whoa, like you really think that you deserve like all of that. Like I see this a lot with women who have Leo 2 placements in like the 10th house, right? Is that they are so unafraid of taking up space. And that is so threatening to so many people. It's like, what do you mean you don't keep yourself small? What do you mean you're not trying to be quiet? What do you mean you're just being wholly and truly and authentically you? And it's like, well, sometimes that is going to get reactions, right? And those reactions might not always be what you want them to be, but that
Yeah.
doesn't concern you, because it's not about other people
Yes.
here. Like maybe I could tie this back into that lunar thought, is like it's not about the feeling, it's about the being, right? Like if you are being yourself it doesn't matter how other people feel about you. It doesn't matter how you feel about them, because that's not really what this Decan is about. It's just about being
Exactly.
yourself. It's about being authentic. It's about showing up with your personal philosophy and saying, this is enough and I am enough. And if you don't like that, then maybe go do some work on yourself, because
Right.
this isn't about me. It's about you, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think Leo 2 people, probably from a young age, will learn that people's reactions to them is often a reflection of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, with that Jupiter aspect too, I mean, I think it really amps up the very underrated quality of generosity with
Yeah.
Leo. It's like, I want to shine, but I want to shine when it's my time to shine. And I mean, part of the reason I love client work is I love helping other people find their own shine. Or like, the way I teach is not like, oh, this is my way. Let's help you find your way
Yeah.
and find the inspiration that makes sense for you. But if people aren't there, or there's parts of them that they're hiding from, and they see you doing that, then right, they're going to find a way to tear that down, or
Mm-hmm.
to not accept what you're offering, not because of what you did wrong, but just because, yeah, they aren't ready for the wholeness that you embody.
Well, yeah, your comfortability with yourself can make other people very uncomfortable who are not
Yeah.
nearly as comfortable with themselves. And I think that that can feel really difficult to hold, because you can feel personally responsible and liable for these other people's reactions. And I think that's a big lesson of Leo too, is learning
Yeah.
how to understand that, yeah, you're not responsible for other people's reactions to you. Your only responsibility is to show up and be yourself, and to shine as
Yeah.
brightly as you possibly can, and be as bold as you can be. And to approach that with that spirit of generosity, right? And I think that a lot of times we kind of talk about Leos as being very, like, they want to be the center of attention, they want the spotlight, they don't want to share it with anybody. And I just don't think that's really true. I think
Yeah.
they want affirmation, they want recognition, they do want praise, but they're also usually happy to hand the spotlight over to someone else when it's their time, or to cast that spotlight on another person. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I never feel better about myself than when I'm talking to a Leo. Like, the glow and the shine
Yeah.
and the warmth that they emit and that they cast back on me, it's almost like a mirror for a lot of my Aquarius stuff.
Yeah.
And I
Oh my
feel like
God.
Leos are just so good at sharing the light, right? And I think part of this Decan is like, you are going to be on center stage in some capacity, right? This doesn't mean you're performing on a stage, but you are going to be elevated and lifted up and looked at. And so, do you make space for other people to join you at that table? Do you step down from that table and let other people occupy it when it's their time? Or are you
Yeah.
so obsessed with your positionality that you cling on to it and you don't let other people come in? Because that can also create some of the Saturnian distancing. And I think
Yeah.
that's where part of this Decan can start to feel really isolating or lonely. It's because you're kind of starting to believe the myth that you are maybe a little bit more important than other people, you know? And that's just
Right.
not ever true.
Right. Versus like something that's really important to me is like, if someone is doing something that I find impressive, like I really try to push them of like, own it. Like if you want to do something with it, you should, because I see it as valuable. And like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, who am I? But yes, I am the queen. Like, please listen to me. I can see these things and I have a good sense of what's valuable. And like, sure, like whatever. Um, like, and not like, I love giving other people that attention. And of course, as like a Leo rising, I'm just like, I love to be surrounded by Saturnians and Aquariuses. So I sometimes have to realize, oh, like not everyone wants attention the same way that I do, but like
Yeah.
I still like it, like appreciating people or pointing out when they've done something or they embody something that I find valuable is so important to me. Like that Leo warmth, I think,
Mm-hmm.
can't be underestimated, where it's not just like, oh, me, but like, how can I extend that warmth so all of us, like in that very Jupiter way, are together and are feeling it and feel like we have a place.
Yeah. It's like the, everybody. Yeah, sure. Every planet revolves around the sun, right? In our solar system. And there is a gravitational pull there, but that also benefits those other planets. It's like the warmth of the sun keeps us alive here on Earth. It's a good thing to have a sun in your own personal solar system, right? It can keep you alive, it can keep you alight. And I think the more that we recognize that as a positive thing instead of a negative thing, right? And stop demeaning people for wanting attention or recognition or praise,
Yeah.
is also realizing like, oh, well, maybe if that's what they need to keep going and keep their light going, then that's actually beneficial for me to give that as well, you know? And yeah, there can be an interesting relationship with praise here that I think really shows up dependent on where the sun is. Like that is really, really going to modify how you feel about these things, you know, and also what planet is here too, right? Like
100%.
it's gonna shift. But should we read the Agrippa
Let's
quote,
do it.
the image description?
Yeah.
So for those who are maybe just joining us for the first time, all of the Decans are kind of founded on this image tradition, right? So we actually have like these very specific types of imagery that are very esoteric and sometimes very convoluted in some ways, that give us deeper meaning into what that place in the zodiac is all about. So Agrippa says, an image with hands lifted up and a man on whose head is a crown. He hath the appearance of an angry man and one that threateneth, having in his right hand a sword drawn out of the scabbard, and in his left a buckler. It hath signification upon hidden contentions, unknown victories, and upon base men, and upon the occasions of quarrels and battles. What do you make of this?
That's so here's the thing. I find a lot of the Leo images very similar. And so for this, I'm kind of like locating myself within it is like kind of interesting, especially because there does feel something very martial about this. And this is not
Totally.
like martial Decan at all, but it very much like, I mean, it speaks to like, I mean, I can relate to the sort of pride in it. And it's like, if there's something that I feel like a certain amount of like confidence or territoriality, it's like, if you challenge me, I will challenge you back. Or like, if, you know, I was thinking the other day, like, I was talking to a friend and it's like, wow, like I have organized my life where like no one is giving me unsolicited advice because in no way, shape, or form do I need that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you do not need. So, and then, but then the upon base men, I mean, there can definitely be this thing of like, if you have placements here, even if you are a terrible person, like you can still be uplifted. Like, you know, putting like a moral valence on you being elevated is kind of a trap. But then it's like, I mean, hidden contentions and unknown victories. I mean, it's
I think
just
unknown
makes me,
victories is
yeah.
so interesting because I think
Yeah.
something that I've been pondering a lot recently about Jupiter is how much
Yeah.
Jupiter acts as an insurance policy against worst case scenarios rather than always the direct delivering of beneficial situations, right? Like right now in the sky, we've got Jupiter in Cancer, we've got Saturn in Pisces, right? About to go into Aries. And there's a lot of terrible things happening in our world that we're seeing every single day. And I think so many people are like, well, why isn't Jupiter in Cancer saving us? Like, why isn't Jupiter in Cancer making all of this better, right? Preventing the war, preventing the, you know, people's rights being stripped from them at every possible turn in the US right now. And I have been thinking a lot about, I wonder just how much Jupiter is actually preventing things from being so much worse. And it's hard to imagine a world in which they're worse because the descent into fascism is, we're descending rapidly, but it still makes me question, well, like how much faster would that be? How many more people would be harmed right now if we didn't have something protecting from the worst case scenario? And so when I see unknown victories, it makes me think of that kind of principle of like, well, maybe this Jupiterian influence sometimes isn't like, oh, here is the crown and the laurels and all of the wins and the victory in the way that we might anticipate. But how much of it is like, oh, and you kind of just get a little bit lucky here, and here's a win for you here, and here's victory for you here. And Jupiter's hermetic law is called the law of victory. And I always describe it as a lucky point in the chart. Like, actually, it's what people think the lot of fortune is, you know, where they're like, oh, fortune, it's lucky. It's like, no, 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 that's not what it means. And if you think that that's okay, but it's not, in my opinion, correct. And that's Leo too thing or something. Like, no, I'm very certain about my perspective on this one. And I'm not open to being wrong, but I'm open to other people holding different ideas about that.
Token.
Anyway, so the lot of victory is actually a lucky point in the chart, right? Is where you do find win and success and allies and aid. And if you're listening to this and you go look up your lot of victory, you're like, oh, I'm not lucky there. Well, then look at the planet, the rules, and all the other things, because there's going to be, you know, qualifiers on that. But when I think about this thing of like unknown victories and like this relationship with Jupiter and luck, right? It's like how much of this Decan is also just providing you kind of support or preventing worst case scenarios or giving you a little bit of like a boost here and a boost there that gets you so much further than you would ever anticipate otherwise. It's just something I
It
think about with the unknown victories piece.
it makes me think too of like victory being like an internal thing of like, did you learn something, or like did you do your best, and that kind of being the victory. Because I think of like a, if I may share a story from my own life, in middle school, I would, you know, after years of wanting it, I won what was called like the English award, which is like, you know, best in your class at this subject. And you know, I got my name put on a plaque, but I was competing with one of my good friends, and we go back to my middle school after we graduated, and I see that both of our names are on the plaque because her mom was on the school board. So if you are looking, you know, if you're just a random person walking down the hallway, you're like, oh, two people won for this year. But I know what actually
Were
happened.
you a little bit
She
annoyed?
knows.
Were you a little
Yes,
bit
but
annoyed?
that's really, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to start a fight about this
No,
because
of
like
course.
I like, who are we kidding here? We were both there. Like we knew whose name was called. We know who earned it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that experience was less important to her than getting her name on the plaque. You
Yeah.
know, like, you know, there were times I'm like, should I go in the middle of the night and take a screw and unscrew her name? But it's like, Chloe, like that's like the Jupiter thing of like, we're not being petty here. Like
Yeah.
you, that does, like that external thing does not take away from the work you put in and the legitimacy of my award.
Well, like no,
Mhm.
totally. But I think it's also like beckons the question of like, what does success mean to you? Which is something
Yeah.
that I always ask people because I'll have clients come to me all the time, be like, well, when am I going to be successful? And I'm like, well, what is your benchmark for success? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it recognition? Is it feeling really good about it? Is it having a lot of friends? Is it having an impact on people? Right? What does success mean for you? And I think that you can't really know if you're victorious or not until you've identified your benchmark for success. And if you don't do that, also, you tend to also feel like you're failing all the time because you're not meeting a standard that you haven't even set. So the goalpost keeps moving. And I think that an important lesson potentially for Leo 2 placements is to set their benchmarks for success and to also be really honest about what success looks like for you. So you can go forth and be victorious because you can't really win if you don't know what you're trying to win.
Right. Or, you know, if, you know, letting, you know, an outside victory supplant, yeah, your own self relationship. Like I think of this like Denzel Washington quote where he was like, don't be someone who is like legitimized by an award, like be someone
Mm.
like legitimizes the award by you winning it.
Love that. That's
Right.
really that's a bar, Denzel. Now I really want to know if he has any Leo 2
I just
placements.
checked. I did not see, but maybe he
Yeah,
has like a
maybe a
lot or
lot there or something. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one too. And I think it also just goes to say, like, you can have success and also not even know what that means to other people, right? Like you can know what it means to you and you
Yeah.
can give legitimacy to something, but you might not also understand your impact. And I wonder if that's a little bit of the unknown victory too, right? Like you're never going to be the crowd. You're not going to really know how it feels to be the crowd watching
Mhm.
you perform, like seeing you on stage, having that beautiful moment of like, oh my God, like this person, like this artist, whoever, right, is like speaking to my life experiences. Is like, you might have that experience with another person, but you'll never have it with yourself in the same way because you're not an outsider. It's such an internal sensation. Right. That I
Yeah.
wonder if that's also part of it is like the inspiration that you're giving other people, it is unknown to you. Even if people tell you all the time, like, oh my God, you're so inspirational. Like you were saying before, right? When just like being you and taking up
Yeah.
space and being
Yeah.
like, hey, this makes me feel weird or whatever. Um, like you don't know how inspirational that is. And even if someone tells you, it's also like, really? Like me? Like you can't feel it the way that other people can. But
Yes.
that's a win, right? The fact that you've inspired other people to be more themselves, to be more authentic, that you've helped them recognize something within themselves that it feels really important to them or like an important part of their journey. I wonder now as we're like kind of peeling back the layers of this, if that's
Mhm.
also part of it, is like the cultural impact that Jupiter brings. you don't really get to experience that in the same way when you're the one making the cultural impact. Because you
No,
just feel like
completely.
a
Yeah.
guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'll always kind of feel like a guy. Or like I think that is such an important lesson, especially like in our very like fame obsessed culture, is this idea that like, oh, when I have this many followers or I get this award or this happens, then I get to feel good about myself. But here's the thing, baby, wherever you go, there you are. And if you
No, I know
don't
it.
feel like a winner when no one is paying attention to you, it's not going to switch when everyone starts paying attention to you. I mean, yeah, what you exactly said is like, I remember even reading about this in a book, or just like the way it was explained is like, right, the audience's feeling is never going to be yours.
Yeah.
And, focusing on that is always going to feel hollow because of that divide. All you can really do is, yeah, I mean, it is that thing of like, you have to accept in that very solar way that you have everything you need, regardless of what the audience is saying. Cause like, as someone who, has the ascendant in Saturn's bound and has Saturn opposing, this sign, like I've been, in front of audiences that didn't understand me,
Yeah.
right? Or were never going to appreciate what I had to offer. And if I could have shrank and folded myself to try to appease that, but I mean, I don't think I could have like like it just sounds impossible. Like I didn't know how to assimilate to people who weren't doing what I was doing, because like I think it just gives you such a strong sense of like, okay, this is what I'm here to do, and I want to find the people who get that.
Yeah. And it's an important thing to do too, is to realize that like that is valid. And you can just go after the thing that you feel really sure about and really certain about and head in that direction and find success along the way. And that's a big part of what you're here to do. And that can feel, I think for a lot of people, especially people who don't hold like dominant positions of power in society, a little bit like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? Me? Surely not, but like, yes, you surely actually, yes, step up to the plate. Like your opinion, your voice, your perspective matters and is going to resonate with another person in a way that you can't possibly comprehend because you're not the
Mm-hmm.
person that needs to hear your words right now. They are. And there's like,
Exactly.
that's something that I always tell new astrologers, because it was something that was told to me when I was starting out, was like, no one's going to say it the way you're going to say it. So go out and
Exactly.
say it, because you don't know who's going to need to hear it from your perspective, from your lens. And that's all you need to have, is a unique perspective. When you have that, it's going to resonate with different people. And I think that that's a Leo 2 lesson, is realizing like your perspective is valid and valuable in and of itself. And the more you go in that direction with certainty and confidence and believe that it matters, the more you're going to find yourself in positions of victory or circumstances that bring you victory.
It's true. It's true. Like for being such a diurnal Decan, like I do find like a lot of Leo 2 lessons are very conducive to like business, or like a lot of
Yeah.
them are lessons that have like carried over into like more like visibility and material success of just like, yeah, I mean, people respond to authenticity. People respond to you like going in your direction like so hard it like becomes like its own ethic or like its own
Mm-hmm.
system. And it that can only come from giving yourself permission to, yeah, do it your way and trust that, yeah, maybe there's like a bit of like uneasiness or a bit of like that Jupiterian leap of faith. But yeah, the more you do it, like the more you actually, right, construct something big. I mean, right, but the Saturn Jupiter influence, it's very much like we're doing something in the long term, and you're only really going to understand it like once you've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, before we finish, I think the only thing that we haven't gotten to somehow is, oh no, two things: the deity and the flower
Yes.
essence, because I want to hear about the flower essence
Yes.
you created. But Isis is the goddess that is associated with this Decan, and she was extremely all powerful in a lot of ways, had a lot to do with the process of death and rebirth. And she was believed to kind of help the dead enter the afterlife. So aiding in that transition, right, as well. And, goddess of magic, healing spells that were said to benefit ordinary people, which when you were talking, it kind of reminded me of this, because I was thinking about how something
Mm.
like going to a concert, right? It can kind of
Yeah.
feel like a spell is being cast on you and you're being healed in that moment. And it's like there's this way that when someone is so themselves, it can
Yeah.
also heal something in you. And I know for me, like when I hang out with Leo placements, I'm like, whoa, like I could just I could just be me and like that could be enough. And like I don't have to feel bad about it. Like I don't have to doubt myself or question anything. Like that sounds really fake, but really interesting and sounds enticing. Right. And it's like the healing power of just being wholly you can benefit others. And yeah, that just kind of pinged that for me when you were saying that. But I'm curious, like, what's your take on Isis and her relationship to the
Yeah.
dragon?
Well, I think of her, one of her most famous myths of like basically gathering up the dismembered pieces of Osiris, her husband,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking of, right, the underworld journey of like soul retrieval or self retrieval or finding all the parts of yourself that maybe like you had to like exile growing up, like to get your needs met, like is such a big part of the journey. And seeing it as a process, like the sun wants you to have it all figured out all at once, but it really is that jovial questing for yourself in
Trust.
all the different areas. Yeah, that is the, I think, the magnetism of this Decan. And I'm thinking too, like there's something really interesting where she's this all powerful being, and she's also like known for like being like sitting down and being very static. Like the name, I think Isis comes from the word throne. And so there's
Okay.
something about like having this like really strong, yeah, place of like just a kingship and royalty that you sit in at all times. But her being also this like underworld and like feminine goddess, it's like, right, once again, it speaks to that unknown victories. It's like you might not always be seen as that all powerful place, but like that's where you're coming from. And if you can feel that
Mm.
internally, then like the wheels of fate will turn and you won't be bowled over by them.
I love that. And she was also said to be a goddess of fate, and so I think maybe there's a lesson here too. Like you've got to trust your fate. You got to trust that your time is coming, that your path will be revealed, and that you will have opportunities to grow deeper and deeper into your authentic forms of self-expression, and that you will be rewarded for doing so, even when it feels hard or challenging or cringe or what have you. I love that you're drinking out of a mug that says Chloe for the Leo 2 episode. Like we are just doing a full
Yeah.
send.
And I got this, I've had this since birth. My parents
That's so
no,
cute.
no mug that
I
my
love it. Well, tell me about the flower essence that you made for this Decan and how that
yes.
related to it.
Yeah, so gold. So the essence I made for Leo 2 was goldenrod, which is a flower that feels very special to me. The last summer that I spent at my childhood home, just as I was leaving, I was like checking like the pond behind my house and found this like beautiful like goldenrod plant. And I sort of like kept a piece as like a charm for me, like going back to Portland and sort of like moving forward. Like, that was like just the beginning of like my astrology career. And it's really a beautiful, like tall, like thin branched yellow plant with like a bunch of like tiny flowers like on the side. So it's just like so lush and so abundant in like the late summer. And it's like really in essence about like standing tall in yourself amidst like
Mm.
many other influences. And it just has such a warmth where when I was kind of like cruising around for like my Leo 2 essence, I like went to this park in town that I go to a lot. And it's like as soon as I saw it coming into the parking lot, I was like, oh, this has to be it. And then I went up to it and she's like, finally, you're back. Like, let's do this.
Oh,
And yeah, and it was really nice. And I kind of did it in like this, like kind of like hidden spot. So, like, I was surrounded by this like goldenrod plant and all these people were passing by and they weren't seeing me. And so it just felt like this like beautiful culmination point. And also, this park is in like a really like high elevation part of town. And so it just felt like such a moment of like, not just like connection to myself, but like connection to the world around me and feeling like at home in that place.
I love this. I don't know if it's because my IC is here, but I was like, that just feels so warm, icy. Like it just felt really good to me to hear that. I was like just putting a smile on my
Good.
face listening to you talk about that. That sounds like a beautiful, beautiful thing. Are you gonna ever sell any of these flower essences? Is that a plan?
Yes, but I really want to do very extensive like testing and proving with myself and others to like really understand their benefits before I start selling them. So I
Okay.
definitely, I think one of the goals for this year will be to like launch like a flower essence consult so I can start doing that.
I love
But
that.
yeah,
Because when you were talking, I was like, I need some of this flower essence. How do
I
I
will
how do I get some
happily send it to
eclipses?
you.
Golden Rod, you can ship some to me. But okay, do you have any final thoughts for Leo too?
Hmm. Just I mean, only cliches. Be yourself. Trust your arrow. But they're all true. I mean, I think that's maybe the thing is like Leo 2 feels very much like all of the like cliches about like authenticity and like
Hmm.
generosity and like integrity, like just come true here.
Yeah, I love that. As I asked, I don't know if you guys can hear it. I have to use a different mic today, but my daughter just started screaming in the background in a very happy way. But it just makes me think about that kind of unbridled quality that children have to be themselves, right? There's no conditioning yet. There's no, oh, I should be quiet or, oh, I should say it like this or do it like that, right? Like you just are you. And I feel like that is part of the lesson of Leo too, is like do it for the part of yourself, your inner child, right? That doesn't have all these other voices telling you to be certain way. Just be your authentic self. And I think that is one of the best things that any Leo 2 placement can do, and trust that it will work out if you do, because that
Yeah.
Jupiter is it's going to catch you. You know, there's you might have to trust fall a little bit, but there will be some soft cushion to not even just catch you, but to elevate you when you do. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Threads of Fate. Chloe and I genuinely love doing these episodes for you guys. And so we're thrilled that you guys seem to be enjoying them too. If you want to support the creation of the show, then please head to my patron page on my website, www.kiraryberg.com/exclusive content, to ensure that the show is around for many years. And Chloe has so many offerings that I couldn't even sit here and list them all out because she is one of the most prolific astrologers that I know. But you guys, she has courses, she has workshops, she has an incredible newsletter and Substack called Recent Bedroom, and she is also open for I was going to say constellations because I was thinking of your Instagram handle. She's
Heck
also
yeah.
open for consultations, and you can follow her on Instagram at desired_constellations. Chloe, anything you want to plug at the end of this episode?
Yeah, just that I've been doing a Decan essay series on my
Mm-hmm.
newsletter that has been very fun and has allowed me to get very weird with it because Kira and I have covered all the basics and so much more in these
Yeah.
episodes. I can just like go on my little tangent. So if you want even more Decan content, then check that out.
Yeah, they're so fun. They're so fun. I feel like I'm going on a little adventure every time I open one of those and read
Yay,
them. I'm
good.
like, this is a
That's
little journey.
good.
And I've also got a guidebook on the Decans on my website. So if you want even more, check that out as well. And make sure to tune back in for Leo 3, because trust me, it's going to be a good one.
She's so cute. Or she's spicy. I don't know about
She's
cute, but
spicy.
like whatever.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.